And oddly, 4 years later, the last Carolina parakeet also became extinct at our zoo.
119 years ago, deer were an endangered species. Turkey were extinct throughout New England. Squirrels were largely gone. At the turn of 1900, almost every species in the eastern United States was on the brink of extinction.
The tallest land mammal is now on the extinction watch list.
Had been the last known Acatenella apex fulva for more than a decade. So that death marked the first extinction of 2016, and with the way things are going, it will not be the last.
A passenger pigeon, or the Latin name Ectopistis migratorius, was one of the most abundant birds in North America in the early 19th century, but their population started to dramatically decrease in the late 19th century and early 20th century, and eventually becoming extinct in 1914.
It was the first time in modern history where we knew the exact date and time of the extinction of a species.
The passenger pigeon is known for its constant migration, moving from season to season to select the most optimal environment for breeding. Their range was from northern Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, and they were never seen west of the Dakotas. They traveled in large flocks at about 60 miles per hour, and it often took multiple days for a flock to pass over a singular location. According to first-hand witnesses in southern Ontario in 1866, there was one flock of pigeons that was 300 miles long. When settlers began clearing forests, passenger pigeons lost food sources and territory. In order to get food, passenger pigeons began eating grain from farms, destroying farmers' harvests. In retaliation, the farmers would shoot the flocks of pigeons to keep them away.
There are some debates, and it's being contested as to when the last wild bird was seen. The one that's well publicized is a bird called Buttons that was shot by a farm boy in Sargent, Ohio.
The debate has centered now on, was it the fact that we overkilled them, or was it overkill plus deforestation, or was deforestation more influential? And the majority of research coming out right now that's new, it really supports that it was the overkill. That deforestation, of course, didn't help, but the birds really could have survived had there not been the overkill.
If every rock pigeon alive today, all 260 million of them, flew in a single flock, it would be 1/8 the size of a group cited in the early 1800s by ornithologist Alexander Wilson.
So let's say in the wild you have a flock of breeding band-tailed pigeons. They'll lay a nest one nest every 3 to 4 acres. They like space. Passenger pigeons would nest anywhere from 20 to 100 nests per tree.
Passenger pigeons ended up becoming a staple of American diet. As flocks were so large, it was easy to kill a few to eat. The hunting itself didn't do too much damage, as the pigeons were able to quickly reproduce. But upon the invention of the telegraph and the railroads, pigeon flocks were able to be tracked, and people could communicate their path. They were killed and loaded onto trains to be transported across the country. Pigeon meat was extremely cheap and formed a large part of American cuisine in the latter half of the 19th century.
Everyone could see what was going to happen. They saw the species vanishing from billions and billions of birds to none in a very short period of time, within 50 years. But the zoos were thinking, okay, so maybe we can breed these guys in captivity, or at the worst case scenario, we'll just put them on display so people can see them until the bitter end.
Martha was the last passenger pigeon. She was kept in an aviary in the Cincinnati Zoo, which has now been converted into a memorial building resembling a Japanese pagoda. She was found dead on the floor of the aviary on the morning of September 1st, 1914.
And Martha, there's not a lot known that's accurate. Unfortunately, a lot of the records from that time disappeared here at the zoo in a fire. There was a fire in the administration building where all this stuff was in the late 1950s, I believe.
Is there hope for the passenger pigeon? Can the passenger pigeon be revived? Advancements in technology may prove promising in the de-extinction process. There may be a future for the passenger pigeon and other extinct animals due to the new technology named CRISPR-Cas9 that allows one to insert a mutation into DNA. This method of gene editing can be used on the passenger pigeon. The Revive and Restore project has outlined a set of steps to revive the passenger pigeon. The band-tailed pigeon is the closest living relative to the passenger pigeon. It can be found on the west coast of the United States and Mexico, and also the Andes Mountains.
From an ecological standpoint, a band-tailed pigeon and a passenger pigeon are already virtually identical. They eat the same things. They lay the same number of eggs. There's a lot of, they're the same size bird. There's a lot of commonality there. What's different, the key thing that's different, is that passenger pigeons are hyper-social and band-tailed pigeons are not.
The first step of the procedure is to splice passenger pigeon DNA from passenger pigeon samples into the DNA of a band-tailed pigeon embryo. Then the scientists will insert the embryo into a living band-tailed pigeon. Lastly, the pigeon is impregnated and the egg is laid. The process will be rehearsed until a stable flock that can reproduce is created. Calling this new species a passenger pigeon is actually a misnomer.
So we're not really getting the passenger pigeon. It could look like it, it might behave a lot like it, but genetically it's not really 100% passenger pigeon.
Since not every difference in the DNA can be replicated, only the important aspects that made the passenger pigeon a passenger pigeon will be replicated. Some of the most important aspects of a passenger pigeon include sexual dimorphism, social behavior, and reproduction routines. Many people don't know how to react to the possibility of bringing the species back. Some positives are the possibility of forest regeneration.
You had billions of birds in the forest like that. Just the sheer number of droppings, the feces that they would drop on the forest floor, number one, could kill the trees that were there, but then also later fertilize the seedlings that came up in that same forest. So they were an agent of something called disruption ecology.
After the extinction of the passenger pigeon, forest fires were responsible for the regeneration cycles of forests. But humans intervened and stopped these forest fires, and thus stopped the regeneration cycles that were present in forests.
The whole idea behind passenger pigeons is to bring them back so that we have an alternative to fire and human interventions in the forests that will scale and produce, hopefully, a really nice, viable, regenerative tool for forest management.
The methods developed for reviving the passenger pigeon can also be replicated on other extinct animals or even endangered animals.
I think that's the upside, that the biotech and the biotechnology that they're developing could be used in a very productive way for species that exist.
Some people fear what may come as a result of de-extinction. No one knows how a revived passenger pigeon may react to the modern ecosystem. The amount of forest 200 years ago has decreased significantly.
All organisms require a certain set of habitat conditions, and we are rapidly changing the habitat conditions over the entire planet with climate disruption, toxic chemicals, land use change, and so on.
Another fear is that of moral hazard. Moral hazard is the economic principle that consists of the lack of incentive to guard against risk when the effects are minimal.
If you get people who are totally ignorant and think that they could be replaced, that is, molecular biology will replace the things we're driving to extinction, that would lead these people maybe to put less effort into preserving what we have. Moral hazard is usually discussed in terms of, if you bought fire insurance for your business, you don't protect it against fire as much as you would if you had no fire insurance.
The de-extinction movement is controversial and is already underway. Within the next 20 years, the first passenger pigeon may be born, and within 100 years, a sustainable flock may be created. It is unknown how this may change the world. The new passenger pigeons may help fix environmental problems
or they may worsen them. The only thing that is certain is that the extinction of passenger pigeons was entirely the humans' fault, and the revival will also be one of our species' great works.
It could happen, but the question is, should we? For me, again, it comes back to ethics. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. With tremendous, I'll quote Spider-Man, with great power comes a great responsibility.